usual, we have a couple of opportunities during our meetings for public remarks. Anybody who's here from the public is welcome to come to the podium, identify yourself, and address the commission. There will also be an opportunity at the end if you so desire. Seeing none, we'll move to the agenda. Any suggestions, changes, deletions to the agenda as circulated? I'm going to parliamentary nitpick and say that the green space plan is unfinished business, but I'm not going to press the point. If there's no other changes, then the agenda is adopted as presented. Approval of minutes. So very nice minutes from our last meeting.
I do have one comment or change.
Please.
So in the land preservation update that I did, I maybe said fire by accident, but I meant to say that it was actually, it was a ribbon cutting event at Davis Foster.
Just like flowers and...
It was for like the new sign, I think. Yeah, like the new name and signage, and then had a wildflower walk. So it was an event, not the fire.
That was my fault.
Which draws a bigger crowd?
The fire.
Great. Any other comments, session, please?
Yeah, just one addition for those present. I believe the chair was present for the meeting last time.
If there's nothing else, if there's no objection, the minutes are adopted as amended. Moving then to green space plan. At our last meeting, I, by the power vested in me, appointed a study group, working group, something else, to look at our 2004 green space plan and think about what we might think about. Commissioner Paul was leading that group, and I know there was a meeting, and looking forward to a summary discussion this evening. You have the floor.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, if you want, I think you can get, if we get your document up, you can actually get the mouse and control the scrolling. Is that, am I correct in that?
For a small fee.
There we go.
$5, that's supposed to count.
So we met 2 times, and the first time we were just kind of discussing like what we thought of it, and the second time we were just kind of finalizing what we wanted to talk about today. But so we looked over the green space plan, which is 20 years old, and our goals for our study group was to assess the progress towards the goals that they had set in the green space plan, and identify any potential gaps that they may want to address or investigate. And some areas of interest that we had when reviewing it was unregulated areas, wildlife corridors, citizen science opportunities, wetland quality, flooding areas, natural communities. We thought the plan did not address climate change, so we thought that might be something they could include, and possibly connecting green spaces through public transportation. And I'll go through more of those individually. But so the green space plan, they talked a lot about priority conservation corridors. So 84% of those are currently regulated lands, so floodplains, wetlands, and wetland and lake buffers. And they also talked about red areas, which were just unregulated lands that should be added to maintain ecological integrity and interconnectedness, which we have about 600 acres. So we thought some thoughts on that was, we were wondering just how are the priority conservation corridors doing? Like how have they been regulated properly and adequately buffered? So we thought, that would be something like that could be addressed. And if they're not properly protected, like what could we do to fix that? And we also wanted to know what was the status of the red areas. So did we add protection for these areas, and how much? And we also, the plan did not really talk about the quality of these areas. So where they covered in invasive species or things like that. So that could be something we could monitor to see if what the quality of these is like and how it's different across the township. And we also thought flooding was something that it didn't talk about, which could be interesting because it could help with wetland or increase flooding, to prioritize areas for wetland protection, because we know that there is some areas in the Meridian Township that floods pretty frequently. And we thought maybe the green space plan could help with that, or just even mention it would be nice. And we thought we could investigate potential opportunities for wetland mitigation efforts. We also thought, we could incorporate citizen science and stewardship into some of the actions that we may take with looking at the green space plan. And we also noticed that they talked a lot about wetlands, but we also have other natural community types, and we thought maybe that could be incorporated into it as well. And they also talked about scenic road corridors, which we have a couple. So there's like 23 miles total, and the plan recommended a 150-foot buffer on either side of them where new development is restricted. And so we wondered, has this occurred? Were the guidelines followed? And what's the progress on the implementation? And how was the quality of those areas? There was also areas of special concern talked about, which was mostly agricultural lands, road crossings, wildlife crossings, and fragile linkages. They had talked about mitigating roadkill or from wildlife crossings, and we were wondering what exactly they did to fix that, and could we get better data on wildlife crossings so we could identify priority places that we could protect. And
Can I hold you there for a second? If I understand right, those are kind of the major categories that you saw the existing plan addressing and issues, and the rest then is the implementation tools that they were recommending be used to accomplish those. I'm wondering if it might make sense to maybe split the discussion a little bit so we can kind of maybe focus a little bit on some of the more substantive areas you've identified, and then maybe also look at the implementation part either tonight or at a subsequent. I believe you also have at the end some data resources that you thought might be useful, so we don't want to forget to look at those, but maybe if we could sort of focus on these areas and see if we need any clarification.
Okay.
In your priority conservation corridors, I was really interested in your first bullet there, that 84% of them are currently regulated, and I was curious how we know that.
That came right out of the plan.
Okay.
That's what they said in the plan. That's what
Okay.
the plan said. I shouldn't say they said. The plan says.
Plan says. Okay.
That the priority conservation corridors, that of those, the areas that were identified as the priority conservation corridors, 84% of them are supposed to be these regulated wetlands, floodplains.
So that would have been as of 2004 or
Correct.
something like
Yep.
that?
Right.
So the question is then how much of that, it has more or less?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Thank you for that clarification. So in the sub-parts here, GIS analysis using current wetland maps, it feels to me like there's several parts here that you're imagining could be questions that could be answered using GIS and other spatial data resources. Is that fair?
yeah.
And in some cases, you've identified certain databases that could be used. Cool. So other issues of clarification from the commission, it's a lot to absorb. But I think from my first read of this, there's some really good questions in there.
Yeah, what's the, when we talk about floodplains, is it the 100-year floodplain? What are we actually referring to?
You know, that's a great question for a planner,
Yeah.
because there are at least three different related terms that are often used.
Okay.
Floodplains, floodways, floodway fringes, and some of them are hydrologic in meaning and some of them are legal in meaning. And most of them are regulated by the federal government, determines where one of them is, and so I'm being vague on purpose.
Am I right in assuming that development isn't typically allowed in floodplains?
Almost always discouraged in my view. Trustee Terzice, would you like to weigh in on this? You're more knowledgeable than me in this.
As far as floodplains, there are limitations to what you can build as far as residential. And they have to be so far away or so much above the floodplain. And that's the 100-year floodplain, I believe. There are floodways which are basically drainage areas that flood occasionally. They're not considered the floodplain because they don't, basically it's just a drain off area. And those are regulated also. You can't build in those. Other than that, I'm not real sure what the limitations are, but they try to avoid the floodplain as much as possible.
Yeah, my understanding is that pretty much all of our wetlands are floodplains and therefore already, and almost vice versa. If it often floods, it's going to be.
Well, there are a number of, especially along the river. There's a floodplain map for that, which are not necessarily considered wetlands, but they do restrict what you can do in there. And that's based on, I believe, federal determinations or something like that.
There was even, sorry to go in the weeds, a few years back, an effort, multi-county effort to request FEMA to USGS to update based on changes in landform and changes in expectations and such.
Well, just changes in drainage, if nothing else, because a lot of it is dependent on flushing the stormwater down to the drains or either the river or the feeding drains, county drains, so.
One thing that I forgot to mention, even though we met twice, just thinking about it now, was that the plan starts off with saying that there are these hubs in the green space plan. There are the hubs, and the hubs are the parks and the preserves that are already protected and already public land, that are permanent, green space in the township. And then these conservation corridors would kind of connect those hubs then. And so one thing I guess we could do is because we've added preserves since, 2004. So we probably should, update.
And we've added pathways.
And so at a minimum, we want to, we could definitely add in updating the green space plan by adding in those new hubs and see how they fit into if they were already identified in the priority conservation corridors or if they, were separate and outside. So that would be interesting to look at.
I think I had stuff about hubs and everything as notes, but then I deleted.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I probably missed it, but somewhere in there is the correlating the acquisitions through land preservation as related to goals in the green space plan. Is that explicit?
What?
Well, among the priority conservation corridors, hubs, corridors, and other things, I'm wondering how well our land preserve acquisitions since 2004 map onto those. Because that's our main way of protecting in perpetuity sensitive property. And that's not the only goal of the land preservation program, but there are occasions where that program has, I'm thinking Red Cedar Glen, that land preserve was one of those. It was right there in the plan, and eventually it was acquired. So
I think we have that under the tools, the land.
Okay, I'm getting ahead of this.
Tools, under land acquisition, is to look at under land acquisition, GIS analysis to see how well the new acquisitions line up with the I guess it doesn't specifically say for LP, for land preservation, just says on top there, but,
Yeah, no, that's probably where I got the idea.
okay.
So, so now that I've jumped us ahead, do you want to go through the implementation tools?
Sure. So there are 7. So the first one was conservation zoning. The plan recommended 30% of each parcel for conservation to be zoned for conservation, and ideally should coincide with the priority conservation corridors and the scenic road corridors. They recommended ecological assessments by develop integrated with land clearing applications. And we were just wondering, have these been implemented? Almost all the implementation tools, we were wondering, have these been implemented and can these be expanded at all?
Yeah, I'm again looking to trustee Trezise. Do we have a land clearing application that you're familiar with?
Not that I'm familiar with.
I think there is an ordinance that limits the amount of clearance that can be done without a permit, but I'm not sure I think you just get a permit. Anyway,
I've never come across it in my 6 years on the planning commission or on the board of trustees. It's never come up.
all right. Keep going.
The next one is conservation easements. Thank you.
It's also available if you.
So, yeah, we were wondering, are these being used in the township and what is the process for using these? Like donating or acquiring them?
Yeah, I'm sure there were a lot of easements for pathways, especially the new one. I know they had to go and get easements from all the properties along the river to build that pathway.
They did, but that's not really a conservation easement.
Oh,
Could be a trail easement?
It's a trail easement. It's
Oops.
an access.
Yes.
I'm going to shut up now.
Now, they did try to design it with that in mind, but it is not, they didn't purchase it as a conservation easement, and to my knowledge anyway.
That came up recently in the last Land Preservation Advisory Board, and is that something that, like, we weren't sure who actually can initiate or, do a conservation easement? Do you know, like, has the township used that tool at all?
I do not know if they've done anything like
Okay.
that. There are some state laws that allow, conservation easements and whatever. I don't know if it's ever been applied here.
I'll probably jump ahead again, I'm sorry. The Sander Preserve was under a rolling conservation easement before it was donated to the township
Oh, okay,
as a land preserve.
okay.
And so I think there are cases in there definitely worth looking into.
Okay.
Next one was voluntary stewardship programs. And it included award programs, adoption programs, federal and state programs. And some of these are being implemented, like the Meridian Conservation Corps. But, we are wondering, how can this be expanded to achieve the goals or improve habitat quality and the function of these areas? And how could we try to expand this? The next one is land acquisition, so we already kind of talked about that one. And we have purchase of development rights, so it was limited to farmland preservation or ecological critical areas. And we were wondering, have they used this? If so, where? Could the township use this more? And the last one is linked site plan approvals. And down here, we just have general questions and considerations. I'll just go over those briefly. So we mentioned that the plan didn't really address climate change. So we were wondering, how could it address climate change and the impacts that it could have to the township? And could the green space plan contribute to addressing the goals with the township's climate sustainability plan? And then we also wondered about public transportation. We were wondering, could, access to these green spaces be improved through public transportation? Is that possible with more bus routes or stops, anything like that?
Again, great questions. Keep going. Keep going.
And then we just have, potential resources and data to explore. I have not had a chance to look at these though, but that's pretty much where we got after our second meeting.
Wow. I'm impressed. Thank you very much for doing all that. That's a big roadmap. I can tell you that the Director of Public Works, Dan Opsmer, has agreed to make his staff available to meet with y'all to look at the kinds of resources the township has in terms of data and its ability to marshal them for these, to start answering these kinds of questions. We haven't set a date, but it seems like a very natural, I mean, you put for them a whole really nice set of questions of what's the stuff we already know that we can just put together in an easy way.
Yeah.
So that's, and there'll be a whole bunch of other things that would be head scratchers. How would we do that? But it might be, well, you can organize those, the questions in whatever way makes sense to you to get the best response from them. I think some of the stuff they'll want to bring in planning staff as well. Some of the stuff on easements and other things. And I know that Principal Planner Shorkey is really interested. He's a GIS nerd himself and really enjoys this kind of stuff. He wouldn't be able to put a lot of time into it, but if Public Works has got some folks that have the wherewithal, make some quick progress.
Emma might also be a good source.
Yeah, you couldn't do it without Parks and, yeah, MMO as well.
I will say that reviewing the plan, I was really impressed. I mean, it seemed like a very solid plan, and the process that they used, and the data analysis that they did. So I thought it was very thorough and, really complete. And so I think that for now it's more, just taking a look and seeing how we, what have we been able to accomplish in the last 20 years in terms of accomplishing what some of the things are in the plan, and then updating and then just maybe tweaking some of the, some of what they've delineated and seeing if it's still, if all the maps, are current and stuff like that then. So, but yeah, I was really impressed. I thought it was really good. So I hope that, I hope the township is interested in continuing to want to achieve the plan.
Any other questions for the study group?
I'm wondering if the green infrastructure audit that Cliff helped with might have some overlap or might be considered an added resource to explore.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
I'm happy to share it with the group again. I don't want to overwhelm people, obviously, but it also seems to me this is a great opportunity to learn about some of these terms that we haven't really addressed very regularly. Maybe like a database or just a helpful cheat sheet on what these terms mean.
A glossary?
Yeah, that's the word.
Cheat sheets when it fits in your palm of your hand.
I think the green space plan had a nice glossary.
Good. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what's in there and what's not, and if any of those things have changed in our way of thinking,
Can I mention one more quick thing?
Yeah.
We have a person in the audience, a reporter who's interested in this topic, and I'm not sure where it fits into this conversation or if you wanted to add anything, but just wanted to mention that too.
Thank you. What do you all imagine as the next step then?
I suppose meeting with Dan Ops and his staff. Like you said, they're mostly available during business hours.
Yeah.
That would be hard for me to meet just with my new job. But
Is that a similar constraint for you guys, for the whole group?
For me, depending on when business hours end? Because I have, at the end of, like, my school day ends 3-ish.
I
So,
think mainly township staff are here till 5 generally, is my understanding.
4:30 or 5,
4:30 or 5?
depends on the department.
Well, I'll let you work it out with them. If there's something that works for all of you or some of you, then we can carry forward. It sounds like you're going to be getting busier and busier, and we want you to succeed in your new role, so we're very sensitive to that.
Thank you.
Can I ask, where is this document available?
I just made it like myself. I can share it with you if you.
I think it'd be good to share it with the whole group.
So we'll put it in the minutes of this meeting?
That would be fine, or a link to it or something like that.
Yeah.
You're comfortable with that? Great.
There's a lot of good information here.
Yeah, I suspect as it moves forward, there's so many interesting topics that have so much meat to them that it's going to be something that ends up getting broken up into pieces and prioritized. And I think there's probably some questions that can be answered really quickly with data at hand, just pick up them. And then there are others that are going to take more time. All right. If there's nothing else on the wonderful work of our working group, we will then move to our next agenda item, which is the resolution of appreciation for retiring Commissioner Graham Diedrich. I did the honors last time. Unless somebody would like to step forward and cut me off at the pass, I'll do it again. Whereas Graham Diedrich has been an active member of the Meridian Township Environmental Commission for 3 years, and whereas Graham has assisted with the development of Meridian Township's climate sustainability plan, and whereas Graham has engaged with youth and adults at local events with hands-on energy activities and outreach in partnership with Solarize Meridian, Meridian Township Energy Team, and Michigan State University, now therefore be it resolved by the Environmental Commission of the Charter Township of Meridian as follows. The Commission, by means of resolution, extends to Graham Diedrich grateful thanks for his voluntary and exemplary efforts. Moved by Chair McConnell.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Fraser. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. And thank you, Graham. Great to have you with us. Any other new business anyone would like to introduce at this time?
Just related to that, Graham, is that we have an opening now to fill out his term in 25. So if you know anybody who's interested, it's a 3-year term which could be renewed, but filling out his term is about a year left.
Thank you for that clarification and reminder. Unfinished business, we have none. Reports and announcements. Staff, you have control of the computer? That's good. Yes, go.
Okay. One of the things we talked about at our last meeting was an update on green grants, sort of a standing agenda item, because the green grants and the climate sustainability projects are a fun part of what we do. And I put just a summary of these in the staff update. So you can link to that on your agenda if you like. It doesn't look like it's loading up very quickly. So I will not go into this too far. I've asked some of the grantees for updates on their projects. Some of them have provided them. Some looks like are going to carry into next year, which is not a huge problem. But I don't have all the updates yet, so I'm going to keep you posted as those come in. I'm not sure why this is not working.
That's all right. We can move on to liaisons.
What I do have is a hard copy.
All right.
Of the, let's see, update of the green grants and the climate sustainability fund, but.
Thank you. So I can report the Planning Commission last met on September 23rd. The main item of business was a special use permit for Okemos Gateway, which is a adult use an adult use marijuana facility on Grand River across the street from Tom's. The Planning Commission recommended approval of that SUP permit to the Township Board. Other boards, commissions, anything of note from the Township Board these days?
We passed the budget.
There you go.
It's good.
Yay. That's government working.
Yeah. Right now, our focus is on the process of hiring a new manager. We have contracted with a search firm, and they presented us with some documents last night as drafts. There's a subcommittee of the board that's trying to revise those more to our liking. Hopefully, we'll get that done by the end of this week. We have the authority at that point to send it on to the search firm to make the changes to their documentation and get the job posted as soon as possible. We didn't feel it adequately described the Meridian Township and its pluses and some of our challenges, and as well as it didn't adequately list what we were looking for as far as qualifications and the type of individual we're searching for our manager. The timeline is very compact. We hope to get it posted very quickly, have a 3 to 4 week posting period. The search firm will then review the applicants and do background checks and do online interviews with them and provide a number 7, 8, 9 for the board to review, hopefully the first week in November. Then possibly have interviews and a visit from the candidates within the next week. And our goal is to have someone on board by the first of the year. That's very ambitious for this type of position, but that's what we're working at.
Great. Questions for Trustee Trezise? Hearing none, we'll move on to teams. Energy team. I'm sorry. Land Preservation Advisory Board.
Yep.
Skipped right over you.
So the Land Pres did meet on September 11th. So one thing I don't know if I mentioned or have mentioned yet was that actually we have a new trustee that's going to be the liaison to the land preservation. So that's Trustee McCurtis.
Yes.
Right. But he was not at the last meeting though, but yeah. And then a couple of things, fall stewardship activities are going to be starting, focusing mainly on seed collection. So get an opportunity, you want to go out and do some nice relaxing collecting seed reserves. That's always a fun thing.
And no fire.
And no fire, no. They had a volunteer banquet this past Friday, I believe. It was for the Meridian Conservation Corps, maybe also for other community
It
volunteers.
was for Meridian Township volunteers,
Yeah, we're all
but
volunteers.
most of them that were there were from the land preservation groups, various. And I was surprised to learn that Emma has something in the neighborhood of 300
Yeah.
people that are on her
Yeah.
email list
Yeah.
that volunteer, not every time, but periodically to work with the land preservation, and that's just amazing.
Yeah, she had 350 people now on her list.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then the township starting the deer management program.
Yes.
So,
And Emma was on TV yesterday for that.
oh, was
She was
she?
interviewed yesterday morning at 7:30 on Channel 6 or something.
Okay.
So, did a nice job.
Okay. It was really impressive. Yeah. Is it last year they culled 300 deer?
That's what our limit is. Yep.
Yeah. So.
A lot of meat went to the
Yeah.
home or to the various food banks.
Yeah, it's great. And she mentioned that we're kind of we've reached the point where it's more like maintenance, so
Right.
we need to get the deer herd down so that the number of car, deer vehicle collisions have,
They've dropped about 37%.
yeah,
Township in the last 5-6 years, something like that.
yeah,
So,
so it's great. That's it.
Thank you. If there's no other liaisons, we'll then move on to teams.
Yeah, the energy team did meet last month, and we talked about future activities, events, solarized meetings, green fairs, possibility of doing an EV show and tell. We talked a little about Leroy's role, and we appreciate the good work he's done with the energy team, and we're the energy team's hopeful that maybe he would be able to continue in the future, kind of assisting the energy team. And the Absolute Solar has volunteered to help develop some solar kits that we can use in our education efforts. I missed the Brownfield Authority meeting, but I did read the minutes, and they processed a couple payments. And they did note that, the township board has kind of communicated with them that they're not pursuing that affordable housing option, which we kind of already knew that was in the works, but I guess they kind of communicated that to the Brownfield Authority. And that's it for those two groups.
Thanks. I'm racking my brain. There was one of the components of the incentives for the Four Corners either expired or was terminated or something to that effect. Anyway.
you want to know what happened?
Please.
They came to us with a proposal that we told them wasn't even close to being acceptable. So they are trying to sell their property and getting another developer in there. So right now it's up in the air.
And was it a brownfield or a TIF that doesn't go with the land? It ended with it will end with the sale of the.
There may be, I'm truly not sure. I mean, they expended several $1 million in some of the cleanup, but they don't get any of it back until there's a building on there. So, and much of that was state money that they were hoping to get back. So right now it's up in the air we're all waiting, hoping that someone comes in and then can provide us with a city center like they promised us 4 years ago.
Thank you. Green Team.
Green month. Yes, Green Team had a very successful recycling event about a week and a half ago at the Meridian Mall. We had just a humongous turnout, one of the best turnouts in the last several years. We had close to 700 vehicles go through that day. We collected about 35,000 pounds of electronics, and we partnered with Consumers Energy to collect some items, and they indicated that it was their biggest event of the year. So they'll be back. They were pleased, and I think we had around 100 volunteers that helped make this all happen. So very successful event.
I would like to say that a lot of my students from Hazlitt volunteered, and they talked about it when they got to school the next Monday would have been, and they really enjoyed volunteering on that event.
Good. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we'll get them back next year.
I will press them.
And there were coats as well?
Yes, also collected coats and some other winter items for people in need. And I'm not sure exactly how many we collected, but the pretty significant volume of those as well. So.
Great, thank you. Following on the energy team comments, I think you had maybe some thoughts on the staff support that the Green Team receives?
Yes, thank you for that reminder. Absolutely. The Green Team does rely a great deal on current staff, Leroy, and we are hopeful also that he will be able to continue in some capacity to help out the green team and the various events that the green team puts on each year. He's critical to that effort, and again, we just echo what the energy team has indicated, that we would like to see that continue.
Thank you. Thank you. Food, I can report a recent conversation with Val Lafferty about what strong turnout they're getting from volunteers who are not just signing up to drive X from A to B, but signing up to always take X from A to B and trying to claim those routes and develop those relationships. So it's fantastic to see that. It's a very dynamic sector, and you know, every supermarket and many restaurants have got corporate policies, but also a lot of initiative to make sure that stuff doesn't go to the landfill. So if you're interested in being part of the Food Rescue Network, let me or Val know, foodrescue.org, foodrescue.org. I don't know if. So that's what I know about food. Green burial, anybody have an update? I think there was a cemetery tour at some point or something, or?
I'm not sure about that. There has been some back and forth with the Green Burial Committee. I believe they are currently in the process of trying to set up a time that they can address the township board. And so that is, I believe, in the works. And I think that was kind of the next step we were hopeful for. And then hopefully once that has occurred, we can reconsider their grant proposal that they had brought to this commission 2 or 3 months back. So.
Okay, thank you. I do believe that's what we had recommended, is that it could, for them, and
Right.
and see if you could they could make the case. Green grants, we heard a little bit about earlier. Andre, did you have a question? No. Okay.
I do have the update on the green grants and the Climate Sustainability Fund. I can, if anybody wants a copy of that, I'll pass it around.
Thank you.
Got a couple other items that I didn't get to in my staff update, if we have time.
Go.
We had an interesting speaker today. Pat Lindeman came to our Green Dialogue, and some of you were there for that, so I'm not going to go into it, but the recording's online. You can get to it through the link on the staff update. But just interesting overview of the tension between development and conservation, and his perspective is something that I don't fully understand, but it was a bit of an eye-opener. Next week, Rob Kircher with Absolute Solar is going to talk about his work. So that should be, if you're available. I know it's a tough time for some people on a Wednesday morning, but Rob is a fairly articulate speaker. And just encourage you to consider that. We heard that we might get a community energy management grant, possibly as soon as October, which would help pay for one of our first charging stations and electric vehicles. That is yet to be seen, but it looks like we were recommended for approval on that. It also pays for some of the energy recommendations that were outlined in the MSU study that was done a couple years ago. So kind of excited about that. And then finally, I appreciate the thoughts you have about or desire to keep me going here at maybe a scaled back level, and warms my heart to hear your thoughts. And I am looking forward to continuing work on some level, and appreciate the conversation about it. Thank you.
Yep. I don't think we have a high school representative unless you have things from the high school that you're willing to share.
I talked to Harrison today. He just told me that he wouldn't be able to be here tonight. He didn't give me anything to share from student perspective. I do know that they're working on some, like, I don't know what the proper term is, but pollinator garden ideas at the schools, and he has been part of a committee that has met with our new Superintendent Patrick Malley, and there's a lot of interest in that sort of thing.
Great.
And I'm sharing that without him, like, giving me the blessing to share it, but I think that's happening. But he did want to apologize for not being here tonight and has asked me to bring back notes to him, so.
Oh, great. It's also recorded, so.
Yeah, he did say he would probably watch it. He's just this amazing kid that, like, what high school student would do that? But he said he would probably do that.
Well, I found it the way to drive my high school kids out of the house watching recordings. It's kind of a classic. Any other reports or announcements? Hearing none, last chance for public remarks. Seeing none, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.